Princess Elena sat in her hover chair, watching through the massive crystal windows as alien ships departed from the royal spaceport below. Each one carried away another suitor who had rejected her hand in marriage. The Zephyrian princes with their silver skin had lasted 3 days. The Carathian delegation with their multiple arms had stayed only 2. Today the insectoid Vexhi had left after a single audience. "Your Highness," her attendant Marcus whispered, approaching carefully. "Your father requests your presence in the throne room." Elena's fingers tightened on her chair's controls. She knew what awaited her. King Harrison had been trying to arrange her marriage for 3 years, ever since the accident that had left her unable to walk. Every alien species in the Galactic Council had been invited to consider an alliance with humanity through marriage to the princess. Every single one had declined. The throne room stretched before her like a canyon of polished marble and floating light crystals. King Harrison sat rigid on his throne, his weathered face showing the strain of failed diplomacy. Beside him stood Chancellor Voss, the man who had orchestrated every failed match. "Elena," her father began, his voice heavy with exhaustion, "we need to discuss your future." "Let me guess," Elena replied, maneuvering her chair closer. Another rejection. What was their excuse this time? Chancellor Voss stepped forward, his pale hands clasped behind his back. "The Vexhi delegation found your condition incompatible with their biological requirements for reproduction. They believe strength is measured only through physical capability." Elena had heard variations of this speech dozens of times. Her paralyzed legs made her undesirable to species that valued physical prowess. Her inability to bear children naturally made her worthless to those seeking genetic alliances. Her human emotions were too volatile for the logical races, too cold for the passionate ones. "I see," Elena said quietly. "And what solution have you devised this time?" King Harrison leaned forward, his eyes filled with a pain that went beyond political failure. "The Outer Rim colonies have requested a representative, someone to help establish better relations with the frontier worlds." The words hit Elena like ice water. The Outer Rim was humanity's newest expansion zone, filled with dangerous planets, hostile environments, and desperate colonists. It was where the kingdom sent people it wanted to forget about. "You're exiling me," Elena stated, her voice steady despite the shock. "We're giving you purpose," Chancellor Voss interjected. "The colonies need guidance. They need someone who understands hardship, someone who can relate to their struggles." Elena almost laughed at the irony. They were sending her away because no alien prince wanted a broken princess. And now they claimed her brokenness was actually an asset. She understood the real message clearly enough. She was an embarrassment to the royal family, a reminder of humanity's perceived weakness in the eyes of other species. "When do I leave?" she asked. "The transport ship New Horizon departs in 1 week," her father replied. "You'll have a full staff, your own quarters, everything you need to establish a proper embassy." Elena nodded slowly. A week to say goodbye to everything she had ever known. A week before she would be shuffled off to the edge of human space, where her failure to secure an alien marriage couldn't damage the kingdom's reputation any further. That night, Elena sat in her private chambers looking out at the stars. Somewhere among those distant lights were the colonies that would become her new home, places where humans scraped and fought to build new lives on worlds that didn't want them, places where being broken might not make her worthless. Marcus knocked gently on her door. "Your Highness, your evening medication." "Marcus," Elena said as he approached, "what do you know about the Outer Rim colonies?" The old attendant paused, considering his words carefully. "I know they're tough places, Your Highness. But I also know they're full of people who've overcome impossible odds, people who understand that strength comes in many forms." Elena took the medication, thinking about his words. Perhaps her father and the Chancellor were right about one thing. Perhaps she would find purpose among the colonists, but not because she was broken like them, rather because she understood what it meant to be underestimated. As the week passed, Elena prepared for her exile with quiet determination. She studied reports from the colony worlds, learning about their struggles with alien wildlife, harsh environments, and resource shortages. She read about farmers who grew crops in toxic soil, engineers who built cities in the paths of hurricane-force storms, and miners who extracted precious metals from the hearts of active volcanoes. These people didn't need a princess who could walk. They needed someone who understood that survival required more than physical strength. They needed someone who had learned to find power in unexpected places. On her last night in the palace, Elena's father visited her chambers. He sat heavily in a chair across from her, looking older than she had ever seen him. "I'm sorry, Elena," he said quietly. "This wasn't how I imagined your life would unfold." "Neither did I," Elena replied. "But maybe that's not entirely a bad thing." King Harrison studied his daughter's face, seeing something there he hadn't noticed before. A quiet strength that had nothing to do with her legs and everything to do with her spirit. "The colonists are lucky to have you," he said finally. Elena smiled, the first genuine smile she had worn in months. Tomorrow she would leave for the Outer Rim, cast aside by a kingdom that saw her as a failure. But for the first time in 3 years, she felt like she might be heading toward something better than what she was leaving behind. The transport ship New Horizon was nothing like the luxury vessels Elena had known. The corridors were narrow, the walls were plain metal, and everything smelled faintly of recycled air and engine oil. Her quarters were small but functional, with magnetic locks to keep her chair secure during turbulence. Captain Martinez, a weathered woman with cybernetic implants where her left eye should have been, gave Elena a tour of the ship. "We're not fancy, Your Highness, but we're reliable. These runs to the Outer Rim require ships that can handle anything." Elena watched crew members work with efficient precision, none of them showing the careful deference she was used to from palace staff. They nodded respectfully when introduced, but immediately returned to their duties. "These people had real work to do. How long until we reach Kepler 442b?" Elena asked. 2 weeks if the hyperspace lanes stay clear," Captain Martinez replied. "That's where we're dropping you off first. The colony there has been having some troubles." "What kind of troubles?" The captain hesitated. "The kind that might make a princess wish she'd stayed home." During the journey, Elena spent her time learning everything she could about her destination. Kepler 442b was a frontier world with a harsh climate and dangerous native life forms. The colony of New Providence had been established 5 years ago by 3,000 settlers seeking a fresh start. Their reports back to Earth had grown increasingly desperate over the past year. Dr. Sarah Chen, Elena's new chief advisor, briefed her on the situation during their daily meetings. "Food production is down 40% due to soil contamination. The atmospheric processors are failing faster than expected, and they've had repeated attacks from something the colonists call shadow stalkers." "What are shadow stalkers?" Elena asked. "Native predators. They hunt in packs and can phase partially out of normal space, making them nearly invisible. The colonists have lost dozens of people to attacks." Elena studied the reports, seeing between the lines what Dr. Chen wasn't saying directly. The colony was dying, and Earth's government saw it as an acceptable loss. They were sending Elena there not to save it, but to give her something to do while it collapsed. 2 days before arrival, the ship's communication array picked up a distress signal from New Providence. Elena listened to the panicked voice of someone named Director Walsh as he described another shadow stalker attack on the agricultural domes. "We need immediate military support." Walsh's voice crackled through static. "These things are getting bolder. They're hunting in daylight now. We can't hold out much longer." Captain Martinez looked at Elena grimly. "Military support takes months to arrange and approve. That colony will be extinct by then." Elena stared at the communication display, feeling the weight of 3,000 lives pressing down on her. She had been sent here to fail gracefully, to represent the crown while humanity's newest colony withered away. But something inside her rebelled against that fate. "Captain, what kind of defensive capabilities does your ship have?" "We're a transport, not a warship. Plasma cannons for asteroid clearing, reinforced hull plating, standard deflector shields. Nothing designed for combat. But it could work in a pinch?" Captain Martinez studied Elena carefully. "Princess, what are you thinking?" Elena's mind raced through possibilities. How long would it take to modify some of our cargo containers into defensive installations? "You're talking about turning civilian equipment into weapons," Dr. Chen interrupted. "That violates dozens of interstellar treaties." "Only if we use them against other humans or member species of the Galactic Council," Elena replied. "Shadow stalkers aren't protected by any treaty I know of." Captain Martinez grinned, showing teeth that had been replaced with titanium implants. "I like the way you think, Princess. My chief engineer could probably rig up some automated turrets using our mining equipment. Won't be pretty, but it might keep those things at bay. For the next 2 days, the ship's crew worked frantically to convert their peaceful cargo into instruments of war. Mining lasers became targeting systems. Construction drones became mobile gun platforms. Atmospheric processors became early warning sensors. Elena coordinated the effort from her chair, discovering that her years of studying military history and political strategy had given her skills she never expected to use. She understood supply lines, defensive positioning, and resource allocation in ways that surprised everyone, including herself. "Your Highness," Chief Engineer Kowalski reported, "we've got 12 automated turrets ready for deployment. They'll track movement and fire on anything that matches the Shadow Stalker energy signature, plus 6 mobile platforms that can patrol a perimeter." Elena nodded, feeling a strange excitement building in her chest. For the first time in years, she was doing something that mattered. Not sitting in a palace being rejected by alien suitors, but actually solving problems that could save lives. As Kepler 442b grew larger in the viewscreen, Elena made a decision that would have shocked her father and scandalized Chancellor Voss. She wasn't going to New Providence as a symbolic representative of a distant crown. She was going there as a protector, ready to fight for people who had nowhere else to turn. The planet's surface showed the scars of human ambition. Vast agricultural domes dotted the landscape like glass bubbles, connected by covered walkways and transport tubes. But Elena could see the damage too. Several domes were dark and abandoned. Defensive barriers had been hastily erected around the main settlement. Burn marks on the ground showed where battles had been fought. New Horizon to New Providence Control. Captain Martinez spoke into her communicator. "We have Princess Elena aboard, along with some equipment that might help with your Shadowstalker problem." The reply came back immediately, tinged with desperate hope. "Thank the stars you're here. We lost another 12 people last night. These things are getting smarter, more coordinated." Elena gripped her chair's controls, preparing to descend to a world where her royal title meant nothing, and her paralyzed legs might actually be the least of her problems. But for the first time since her accident, she felt truly alive. The landing pad of New Providence was a circle of scarred concrete surrounded by hastily welded metal barriers. Elena's hoverchair descended the ship's ramp, flanked by cargo containers filled with her improvised defensive equipment. The colonists who gathered to meet her looked nothing like the polished courtiers she was used to. Director Walsh was a thin man, with prematurely gray hair and burn scars on his left arm. His clothes were patched and practical, and his handshake was firm but brief. "Your Highness, we appreciate you coming, but I hope you understand the situation here isn't exactly suited for a crippled princess." Elena finished for him, noting how his eyes had automatically dropped to her chair. Walsh flushed. "I was going to say for diplomatic protocols. We're in survival mode here." Elena gestured to the cargo containers being unloaded behind her. "Good. Then you'll appreciate that I didn't bring diplomacy. I brought weapons." The crowd of colonists murmured among themselves as Chief Engineer Kowalski directed the unpacking of automated turrets and mobile defense platforms. Elena noticed children hiding behind their parents, their eyes wide with a fear that spoke of too many losses. "These are mining lasers," Walsh said, examining one of the turrets. "You can't seriously expect these to stop shadow stalkers. Have you tried mining lasers against them before?" Elena asked. "Well, no, but then let's find out if they work before we decide they won't." Dr. Amanda Foster, New Providence's chief scientist, approached Elena's chair with obvious curiosity. "Your Highness, I've been studying the shadow stalkers for 2 years. Their partial phase ability makes conventional weapons nearly useless. What makes you think these will be different?" Elena had spent the journey studying everything the ship's database contained about phase-shifting creatures. Because mining lasers work on a different frequency spectrum than military weapons. They're designed to break molecular bonds in rock, not punch holes in armor. If these creatures phase by shifting their molecular density, a mining laser might disrupt that ability. Dr. Foster's eyebrows rose. "That's actually brilliant. Why didn't our military advisors think of that?" "Because they think like soldiers, not like miners," Elena replied. "Sometimes you need a different perspective." Over the next 3 days, Elena worked with the colonists to establish a defensive perimeter around New Providence. Her hoverchair allowed her to move quickly across the rough terrain, while coordinating the placement of turrets and sensors. She found herself consulting with farmers about sightlines, with engineers about power distribution, and with children about the creature's hunting patterns. 8-year-old Tommy Martinez had lost his father to a shadow stalker attack, but had also observed their behavior more carefully than any adult. "They don't like the bright lights in the hydroponics lab," he told Elena, "and they always attack from the same direction when the wind blows east." Elena knelt her chair down to Tommy's eye level. "You're very observant. Would you like to help me plan where to put the sensors?" For the first time since her arrival, the boy smiled. On the 4th night, the shadow stalkers came. Elena watched from the command center as the perimeter sensors detected movement in the darkness beyond the settlement. The creatures appeared on thermal imaging as shifting patches of cold that moved with predatory intelligence. There were more of them than anyone had expected. "Turret grid online," reported Chief Engineer Kowalski. "All systems showing green." "Mobile platforms in position," added Dr. Chen, who had volunteered to coordinate the mobile defenses. Elena studied the tactical display, her mind racing through the lessons she had absorbed from military history texts. Wait for them to commit to an attack vector. Don't fire until they're too close to retreat. The shadow stalkers moved like liquid darkness, flowing around the settlement's outer barriers. Elena could see them testing the defenses, probing for weaknesses. Then, as if responding to some unseen signal, they charged. The mining lasers erupted in brilliant beams of coherent light. Where they struck the shadow stalkers, the creature's phase ability failed catastrophically. The beams didn't just wound them. They locked them back into normal space, making them vulnerable to conventional weapons. "It's working," Dr. Foster shouted over the sound of laser fire. "The frequency disruption is preventing them from phasing." But Elena noticed something troubling on the tactical display. "They're learning. Look at the pattern. The ones in the back are adapting to avoid the laser frequencies." She was right. The shadow stalkers were intelligent enough to modify their behavior in real time. The creatures that had hung back during the initial assault were now approaching using different phase frequencies, ones that the mining lasers couldn't disrupt as effectively. "We need to adapt faster than they can," Elena said, her fingers flying over the command console. "Kowalski, can you modify the laser output frequencies?" "Not quickly enough. It takes 20 minutes to recalibrate each turret." Elena studied the tactical display, watching the pattern of the creature's advance. Then she noticed something that made her smile grimly. Tommy was right about the wind direction. They're using air currents to mask their scent. "Dr. Foster, what happens if we create a massive electromagnetic pulse in the atmosphere above us?" "It would disrupt all our electronics," Dr. Foster replied. "But it might also interfere with their phase abilities across a broad spectrum." "Do it," Elena ordered. "Your Highness, that will shut down our defenses completely for several minutes," Dr. Chen protested. Elena looked around the command center at the faces of the colonists, people who had traveled across the galaxy to build new lives, only to find themselves hunted by creatures from nightmare. They deserved better than to cower behind walls while monsters picked them off one by one. "Sometimes you have to break your own rules to win," Elena said. "Activate the EMP." The electromagnetic pulse erupted from the settlement's main power core, washing across the landscape in an invisible wave. Every electronic device in New Providence went dark. The turrets stopped firing. The sensors went blind. For 30 seconds, the colony was completely defenseless, but the shadow stalkers were screaming. Locked back into normal space by the electromagnetic disruption, they became visible to the naked eye for the first time. They were sleek, predatory creatures with obsidian skin and too many teeth, and they were running away as fast as their legs could carry them. As the electronics slowly came back online, Elena watched the retreating creatures on the restored sensors. They fled into the wilderness and didn't return. The colonists cheered, but Elena felt only quiet satisfaction. She had found her purpose at last, and it had nothing to do with marrying alien princes. Word of Princess Elena's victory over the Shadow Stalkers spread across the Outer Rim colonies, faster than hyperspace communications could carry official reports. Within 2 weeks, she was receiving desperate messages from 17 different settlements, each facing their own seemingly impossible challenges. The mining colony on Titan 7 was being overrun by crystalline parasites that ate through metal faster than the miners could dig. The agricultural world of New Eden was losing entire crops to a fungal infection that resisted every known treatment. The research station on Proxima 3 had lost contact with Earth after their quantum communicator was damaged in an asteroid strike. Elena sat in her new office in New Providence's administrative center, a converted storage facility that she had transformed into a crisis coordination hub. The walls were covered with star charts, colony reports, and tactical assessments. Her hover chair moved between workstations where colonist volunteers helped her track problems across dozens of worlds. "Your Highness," Dr. Chen said, approaching with another stack of distress calls. "I think we need to prioritize. We can't help everyone." Elena studied the reports, each one representing thousands of lives hanging in the balance. "Says who? The laws of physics, for one thing. We don't have enough ships, enough supplies, or enough time to reach all these colonies before they fail." Elena had heard similar arguments from Chancellor Voss whenever she had suggested more aggressive aid to struggling settlements. The mathematics of scarcity, he had called it. There were always more problems than resources to solve them. But Elena was beginning to understand that the mathematics changed when you approached problems differently. "Dr. Foster," Elena called to the scientist who was analyzing atmospheric composition data from 3 different worlds. "What do the crystalline parasites on Titan 7, the fungal infections on New Eden, and the asteroid damage on Proxima 3 have in common?" Dr. Foster paused in her work, considering the question. "Nothing obvious. They're completely different types of problems on different types of worlds. Look deeper. What's the real challenge in each case?" After several minutes of thought, Dr. Foster's eyes widened. "They all require solutions that work in extreme environments. The parasites thrive in conditions that kill normal life forms. The fungus spreads in ways that normal biological treatments can't counter. The quantum communicator failed because it wasn't designed for the radiation environment around Proxima 3. Elena nodded. "And what's the one thing these colonies have in common with each other and with us? They're all human settlements trying to survive in places that weren't meant for us," Tommy Martinez said from where he was helping organize supply inventories. The boy had become Elena's unofficial assistant, his sharp mind and fearless honesty invaluable in cutting through complex problems. "Exactly," Elena said. "So instead of treating each crisis as a separate emergency, what if we treated them as variations on the same challenge? Humans adapting to hostile environments." Dr. Chen looked skeptical. "That's a nice philosophical framework, Your Highness, but it doesn't change the practical limitations." Elena smiled, the same expression she had worn when facing down the shadow stalkers. "Doesn't it? Captain Martinez, how long would it take to reach all 17 colonies if we tried to visit them one at a time?" 8 months minimum, the captain replied from where she was reviewing navigation charts. "And how long if we sent solutions to them instead of going ourselves?" Captain Martinez paused, seeing where Elena's logic was heading. 2 weeks if we use the quantum relay network." Elena turned to the room full of colonists. "The mining equipment we used against the shadow stalkers was modified for a specific purpose using materials we already had. What if we applied the same principle to these other problems?" Dr. Foster caught on first. "The crystalline parasites eat metal by breaking down molecular bonds. If we send the Titan 7 colony the specifications for mining lasers tuned to their specific crystalline frequency, they can build their own weapons using their existing equipment." Elena finished. "And the fungal infection on New Eden?" "Electromagnetic pulse treatments," Dr. Chen said, his skepticism evaporating as he grasped the implications. "The same principle we used here, but calibrated for biological rather than phase disruption effects." "And the quantum communicator on Proxima 3? "Doesn't need to be repaired if we show them how to build a relay network using standard mining equipment," Captain Martinez added. "They've got everything they need in their asteroid mining operation." Elena watched her team's excitement build as they realized what she was proposing. Instead of treating each colony as a dependent client waiting for rescue, she wanted to turn them into nodes in a mutual aid network. Each settlement would share its solutions with the others, creating a web of support that didn't depend on Earth's distant bureaucracy. Over the next month, Elena's coordination center became the unofficial capital of the Outer Rim colonies. Engineering solutions developed on one world were transmitted to others facing similar challenges. Agricultural innovations from New Eden helped settlements on 6 different planets. Mining techniques from Titan 7 were adapted for construction projects across the frontier. The colonists stopped waiting for help from Earth and started helping each other. But Elena's success didn't go unnoticed in more civilized parts of the galaxy, Your Highness, Dr. Chen said one morning, his face grim as he held a priority communication from Earth. "We've received an official inquiry from the Galactic Council. They want to know why human colonies have suddenly become so much more successful at surviving in hostile environments." Elena read the message, noting the careful diplomatic language that couldn't quite hide the concern underneath. The other species had expected humanity's frontier colonies to fail. Human expansion into the Outer Rim was supposed to be limited by their inability to adapt to truly alien environments. Instead, the colonies were thriving. "They think we're developing new military technologies," Dr. Foster added. "Several species have filed formal requests to inspect our settlements for treaty violations." Elena set down the communication pad, understanding the implications immediately. Humanity's sudden success on the frontier was making other species nervous. They had been comfortable with humans as long as humans remained appropriately weak and dependent. But humans who could adapt, innovate, and survive in impossible conditions? That was a different matter entirely. "What are you thinking, Your Highness?" Tommy asked, noticing Elena's thoughtful expression. Elena looked around her command center, at the star charts showing thriving human colonies, at the faces of people who had learned to solve their own problems instead of waiting for rescue. "I'm thinking," she said slowly, "that we've been approaching this all wrong. The Galactic Council rejected me because they saw a broken human princess. But what if being broken was exactly what we needed?" The Galactic Council inspection team arrived 3 months later, aboard a massive diplomatic vessel that dwarfed anything in the human fleet. Elena watched from New Providence's observation deck as representatives from 12 different species descended to her. Colonies surface in gleaming shuttles that made her own transport ship look like scrap metal. Ambassador Zethtar of the Carathians led the delegation, his forearms gesturing with practiced authority as he emerged from his shuttle. Elena remembered him from her failed courtship attempts back on Earth. He had been one of the first to reject her as genetically inadequate for leadership roles. "Princess Elena," Ambassador Zethtar said, his translator converting his clicking speech into formal diplomatic language. "The Galactic Council requires an explanation for the unprecedented expansion of human capabilities in hostile environments. Our preliminary surveys suggest treaty violations regarding weapons development." Elena maneuvered her hover chair to face the delegation, noting how their eyes automatically dismissed her the moment they saw her paralyzed legs. It was the same look she had received from every alien suitor who had rejected her marriage proposal. "Ambassador," Elena replied calmly, "I'd be happy to show you everything we've accomplished here. Perhaps you'd like to tour our facilities?" The delegation followed her through New Providence with obvious skepticism. They examined the modified mining lasers that had defeated the Shadow Stalkers, clearly expecting to find hidden military applications. They studied the electromagnetic pulse generators, searching for evidence of weapons research. They analyzed the communication networks linking colonies across the Outer Rim, looking for signs of military coordination. "These are civilian tools," Dr. Yixhal of the Vexi finally admitted, his insectoid features showing confusion. "Modified for survival applications, but fundamentally non-military in nature." "Then how," Ambassador Zethtar demanded, "do you explain the dramatic increase in human colony survival rates? According to our projections, 60% of these settlements should have failed by now." Elena smiled, the same expression she had worn when explaining Shadow Stalker tactics to Tommy Martinez. "Would you like the diplomatic answer or the real one?" "The real one," said Counselor Nix of the energy-based Luminar species, her photonic form flickering with curiosity. Elena gestured to the bustling colony around them. "We succeeded because you rejected me." The silence that followed was so complete that Elena could hear the wind generators humming in the distance. "Explain," Ambassador Zethtar finally said. "Every species in the Galactic Council rejected my marriage proposal because I was broken. Paralyzed legs, unable to bear children naturally, too weak to be a proper leader. You sent me here because I was an embarrassment to humanity's attempts at respectability." Elena paused, letting her words sink in. "But you made a crucial mistake. You assumed that being broken meant being worthless." Dr. Foster stepped forward, understanding Elena's strategy. "Your Highness discovered that the same perspectives that made her unsuitable for traditional leadership made her perfect for frontier survival. She thinks differently because she has to think differently. The Shadow Stalkers, for example," Elena continued, Your species would have approached them as a military problem. Send soldiers, deploy standard weapons, fight them on their own terms. I approached them as an adaptation problem. How do you survive against something that phases in and out of reality? You don't fight it. You change the rules. Counselor Nix's photonic form pulsed with what Elena had learned to recognize as excitement. You're saying that your physical limitations led to cognitive advantages? Not just mine, Elena said. Look around you. This colony is full of people who came here because they couldn't succeed in normal human society. Criminals seeking redemption. Misfits who didn't fit into Earth's rigid social structures. Dreamers who were told their ideas were impossible. The Outer Rim doesn't get humanity's best and brightest. We get humanity's broken and desperate. And that's exactly why we succeed, Tommy Martinez added, stepping forward with the fearlessness of childhood. Because when you're already broken, you can't break anymore. You have to find new ways to work. Ambassador Zethtar's forearms gestured in agitation. This is impossible. Inferior specimens cannot outperform superior ones. It violates the fundamental principles of evolutionary development. Elena had been waiting for this moment. Does it? Or does it violate your assumptions about what makes a specimen superior? She activated a holographic display, showing colony success rates across the Outer Rim. Human. Settlements have a 93% survival rate in environments that your best scientists classified as uninhabitable. We've developed solutions to problems that stumped Galactic Council research teams for decades. We've built thriving communities on worlds where your species' expeditions failed completely. These are anomalous results, Dr. Yixhal protested. Statistical outliers that don't represent true capabilities. Are they? Elena asked. Or are they the inevitable result of sending people who have to innovate to survive because conventional solutions don't work for them? Elena maneuvered her chair to face each member of the delegation in turn. You rejected me because I couldn't walk. But that forced me to develop other capabilities. Strategic thinking, resource optimization, the ability to see problems from perspectives that weren't limited by physical assumptions. The colonies are thriving because they're full of people like me, humans who couldn't succeed in normal society and had to develop alternative approaches to survival. When you put enough alternative thinkers in one place, they start finding alternative solutions to everything. Counselor Nix's form brightened significantly. This implies that diversity of capability, including what we term deficiency, actually represents adaptive advantage under frontier conditions. Exactly, Elena said. And here's the part that should really worry you. We're not going to stay in the Outer Rim forever. Every human who learns to solve impossible problems out here is going to take those skills back to civilized space eventually. We're not just surviving on the frontier. We're learning to thrive anywhere. The delegation exchanged glances that Elena recognized from her diplomatic training. They were realizing that they had fundamentally misunderstood both the threat and the opportunity that humanity represented. Ambassador Zethtar spoke slowly, his translator struggling to convey the complex emotions in his voice. Princess Elena, the Galactic Council would like to reconsider certain previous decisions regarding human integration into the galactic community. Elena's smile widened. She understood what he was really saying. The same aliens who had rejected her as unfit for marriage were now worried that humanity's broken people might represent a competitive advantage they couldn't match. I'm flattered by the Council's newfound interest, Elena replied, but I'm afraid I'm rather busy these days. Building a civilization has a way of consuming one's time. 5 years after her arrival in the Outer Rim, Princess Elena received a communication that changed everything. Not from her father, the king, not from the Galactic Council, but from Earth's newest colony ship, the Horizon's Dream, carrying 50,000 settlers toward the furthest edge of explored space. Your Highness. Captain Liu's voice crackled through the quantum relay. We have a problem. Our destination system is already occupied. Elena studied the data streaming across her command center's displays. The Kepler 452 system contained 3 habitable worlds, all claimed by a previously unknown alien species called the Hegemony. According to the settlers' reports, the Hegemony had issued an ultimatum: turn back or be destroyed. What's Earth's official response? Elena asked. Negotiation through proper diplomatic channels, Captain Liu replied, his voice heavy with frustration. Expected timeline for resolution is 18 to 24 months. We don't have the fuel reserves to wait that long in deep space. Elena understood the real message. Earth's government would sacrifice 50,000 colonists rather than risk open conflict with a new alien species. The settlers were expendable, just as Elena herself had once been, but Elena was no longer the rejected princess who had been exiled to the frontier. Captain Liu, can you reach the Kepler system? Barely if we push our engines to maximum efficiency. Then do it, and send a message to every human colony in the Outer Rim. Tell them Princess Elena is calling in 5 years of favors. Over the next 3 weeks, Elena assembled something that had never existed before, a human fleet not controlled by Earth's government. Mining ships from Titan 7 joined agricultural transports from New Eden. Research vessels from a dozen scientific outposts converged on Elena's coordinates. Even the merchant traders who carried goods between settlements answered her call. Dr. Chen watched the fleet assembling with obvious nervousness. Your Highness, this could be considered an act of rebellion against Earth's authority. Elena studied the tactical displays showing 37 human ships moving toward the Kepler system. None of them were warships in the traditional sense, but each had been modified with the same innovative thinking that had saved New Providence from the Shadowstalkers. Dr. Chen, what authority does Earth have over people they exiled and abandoned? The answer came from Tommy Martinez, now 15 years old, and Elena's chief strategic advisor. None. We're not Earth's colonies anymore. We're something new. Elena had been thinking about that truth for months. The Outer Rim settlements had evolved beyond their origins as desperate refugees for humanity's unwanted. They had become something unprecedented, human communities that succeeded because of their differences, not in spite of them. The journey to Kepler 452 took 2 weeks, during which Elena coordinated strategies with colony leaders across dozens of worlds. The conversations revealed just how much the frontier had changed. These weren't scared refugees begging for help anymore. They were confident innovators sharing solutions to problems that Earth's best minds couldn't even understand. When the human fleet arrived at Kepler 452, they found the Horizon's Dream surrounded by sleek hegemony warships. The alien vessels were beautiful in their deadly efficiency, designed by a species that clearly valued perfection and uniformity. Elena opened communications with both fleets simultaneously. This is Princess Elena of the Outer Rim colonies. I'd like to speak with whoever's in charge. The response from the hegemony came first. I am War Commander Thexan. You will order your primitive vessels to withdraw immediately, or we will destroy them. Captain Liu's voice followed. Your Highness, thank God you're here. The hegemony has been threatening us for days. They claim humans are too chaotic and unpredictable to be trusted with colony worlds. Elena smiled, recognizing an old pattern. War Commander Thexan, I understand your concerns about human unpredictability. Perhaps we could discuss a solution that addresses both species' needs. There is no solution, Thexan replied. Chaotic species contaminate orderly systems. This is a fundamental law of galactic stability. Elena had heard variations of this argument from every alien species that had rejected her marriage proposal. Humans were too emotional, too unpredictable, too different to be trusted with responsibility. War Commander, what if I told you that our chaos could be useful? The alien's response was immediate and dismissive. Chaos serves no useful purpose. Are you certain? Elena asked. Captain Liu, please transmit our settlement success rates to the War Commander. The data stream showed human colonies thriving in environments where other species had failed. Survival rates that defied conventional wisdom. Innovation rates that exceeded theoretical maximums. These statistics are impossible, Thexan finally said. They're real, Elena replied, and they're the direct result of the chaos you find so threatening. You see, War Commander, your species values perfection and order, but perfection only works in perfect environments. When conditions become impossible, you need imperfection. You need chaos. You need people who are broken enough to find solutions that perfect people would never consider. Elena paused, letting her words register. The 50,000 people on that colony ship aren't just seeking new homes. They're seeking places where their differences become advantages. And the 3 worlds in this system aren't just habitable. They're hostile enough to require exactly the kind of innovative thinking that humans specialize in. What are you proposing? Thexan asked. A partnership. Your species has achieved remarkable success in creating ordered, efficient societies, but you've never learned to thrive in chaos. We can teach you. In exchange, you can teach us about creating stable, long-term institutions. The communication channels fell silent for several minutes. Elena could imagine the war commander consulting with superiors who had never encountered a proposition like this before. Finally, Thexan responded. Princess Elena, the Hegemony Council requires proof of human capabilities before considering such an arrangement. Elena had been hoping for exactly this response. Of course. Pick your most challenging problem. Something that your ordered approaches have failed to solve. Give us 1 month to find a solution. Another long pause. There is a situation. A rogue AI in the Proxima Centauri system has been disrupting our trade routes for 3 years. Our most advanced algorithms cannot predict its behavior patterns. Our most sophisticated weapons cannot target its constantly changing configurations. Elena grinned. War Commander, you've just described the perfect job for chaotic humans. We'll have your rogue AI problem solved within 2 weeks. As she closed the communication channel, Elena realized that she had come full circle. 5 years ago, she had been rejected by the Galactic Council for being too broken to be useful. Today, she was negotiating with new alien species from a position of strength, offering humanity's brokenness as an asset. The girl who had been exiled for failing to secure an alien marriage was about to secure an alien alliance by proving that failure itself could be a form of success. But first, she had a rogue AI to hunt, and Elena was looking forward to showing the hegemony exactly what human chaos could accomplish.